Most welcome to come visit. All right. The millennial reign. It is so packed with so much deliciousness. And as we went through earlier this week, there is a passage that is shut off from a lot of people. We went into Nehemiah, where they found, you notice they found the book of the Torah? How many books of the Torah do we have in our houses? You don't have to find one, you can just bump into one. You know, and Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 14 said, they found written in the Torah that Yahweh had enjoined by means of Moses that the sons of Israel should dwell in Sukkot during the festival in the 7th month. You can imagine that you're Israel and you forgot about doing Sukkot. It is almost like you forgot to eat or you forgot to sleep. You know, because as a fish, you know, the Jews are saying that Torah is like swimming in the ocean. Living in that ocean, you're living with perils, but living outside the ocean, you're dead automatically. You know. And then he tells you in Nehemiah 8:14 and verse 15 it says, oh, I'm in Chronicles. In 8:15 it says, and they should announce and proclaim in all the cities in Jerusalem, saying, go out to the mountain and bring olive branches, branches of oil trees, myrtle branches, palm branches, branches of leafy trees, to make booths as is written. And it's funny because when we read Leviticus 23, and it names the 4 species as we know it. And then our brother Judah, they make a lulav. And then these guys said it is written that we make booths out of these plant life. So that shows you the scriptures are written to a people that already know. Everybody knows being a shepherd and being a person that's running cows and sheep and goats, that in the desert you have to make sukkah for your animals. You take the existing species or the existing material in that environment. In this case, in the desert environment, you take these rocks and you surround your sheep and your goats. And you put these shittim wood, these sticker bushes, these acacia wood. And you can see at the zoo in San Diego or the safari park with these huge thorns. And the shepherd would sleep, him or her, doesn't matter which one. Remember, Zipporah was a shepherdess. He puts himself right in the middle of those sheep, surrounded by these rocks, surrounded by these thorn bushes, so the lion, tigers, and bears can have easy access to this plentiful, bountiful food called sheep and goat, which we're going to have today. That's the sukkah. And it's usually using the materials that you're living in at that time. So Israel, remember last year we talked about us being sheep in Psalm 23, and we brought out the Hebrew meaning of what really was going on, not a funeral dirge. But when they get into Israel, they're going to have, what's their material? We just read that material. You got olive branches, you have fruit trees, you have myrtle branches, you have palm trees, things of this nature. And this is what we have here. You know, we got orange branches, palm trees, myrtle, you know, pine trees. So Yahweh is giving us this sense that we are animals. We are the sheep that we talked about last year. And that we are given this protection, this shade. Because he's about protecting his sheep. And his sheep know his voice. So when we say go to the feast of Sukkot, it's not a strange word to us. It's not a strange thing. It should never be a strange thing to anybody that has a Bible. When we were Christians, when we said the Feast of Tabernacle, we're like, that's a strange thing. We don't have a clue. We use that word tabernacle in that church, the first tabernacle choir. But nobody's thinking about a Sukkot or a sukkah. Think about that. When the last time you went to a Christian church with a tabernacle choir or going to Tabernacle's AME church, whatever, that you thought about a sukkah? Or they had a sukkah in front of the building? I never saw one. I never saw one. But here Israel, again, like we talk about the fish, they forgot. Then it says in verse 16, Nehemiah 8, so the people went out and brought them and made themselves sukkahs. This is on the first day, where people have a problem. Yahweh walkers, they won't make a sukkah on the first day. It's a high day. We can't make a sukkah. Yahweh says, well, make a sukkah on the first day. Take these branches, you're going to cut them down, and you're going to make this edifice. What we have right here, we made it on the first day. I remember when we used to make a sukkah before the Feast of Tabernacles, so we won't violate the high Sabbath, because that's where we were in our knowledge and so forth. And that's like Yeshua said, the Jews got on his case for healing somebody on the Sabbath day, and he says, don't you circumcise somebody on the Sabbath day? I'm healing somebody, you're taking away some flesh. And he's like, come on guys, where you at? You know. But if that's where you at, that's where you at. So he says, so these people made these sukkahs. And it said they put them on each one on their roofs and the other houses. They put them in the courtyards. They put them in the courtyards of Yahweh's house, in the open space of the water gate, in the open space of the gate of Ephraim, and the entire assembly of those who had come back from captivity made sukkahs and sat under the sukkahs. For since the days of Joshua the son of Nun until the day the children of Israel had done so, that there was great rejoicing. In other words, since the days of Joshua till this day in Nehemiah, after they came back from captivity, nobody's keeping the Feast of Tabernacle like this. And everybody looks at this talking about this. So we got eons of time. That's a lot of time. First of all, do you see the mercy of Yahweh? Some people are so upset, like, oh man, we got Yahweh walkers keeping the feast at a resort. You know, they're keeping it in an RV. They're keeping it, you know, in
a camper.
In a camper.
A tent.
So in their house, and they're persecuting them. But from the time of Joshua, the time to Nehemiah time, they weren't keeping it exactly. They did snippets of it and so forth. And I remember I was I one of them in that regard? A little bit, not much. But we had people that condemned other individuals that they were keeping. You can't keep tabernacles in a hotel. I guarantee you that person does not live in a hotel day in and night out, do they? And if I remember, buildings are made out of what?
Wood.
Wood. You know, a lot of the glue and stuff and so forth. You know, I mean, if you want to be hyper technical, the stuff is coming from the ground. They're there temporarily. But really, and the true sukkah is who? The true sukkah is who?
Yahuwah.
No, well, yeah, but we know that. But who's the true sukkah?
Us.
Us. We are a palm tree. If we're not righteous through Messiah, and you have a beautiful sukkah that you sleep under, and a tent next to it, so to speak, and you don't do righteousness, love, mercy, and all that, your sukkah is torn down. If you're a tree, if you're not a tree planted by the waters, with all that ruach deliciousness emanating from you, but you have a tent and a sukkah next to you, and you may sit under it, and you don't give anybody the ruach deliciousness that you have given by Yahweh, you got a bad sukkah. If you're a bough tree that's thick, you get a good support for your sukkah, and you got your tent, and you don't shoulder your responsibilities to your brothers and sisters, and you don't go ahead and help out the poor, the weak, and your enemy, what kind of sukkah are you? And we persecute people because they're not in the tent. Well, the tent's not a sukkah anyway. A sukkah is this. This is the principle of a sukkah. Can a tent be a sukkah? Yes. Can a house be a sukkah? Yes. But really, are you being the sukkah that we're supposed to be? If you saw the design of, I'm gonna go there and draw. Well, I guess I didn't draw it. A sukkah. Did you know that guess what Yahweh uses a sukkah? Does anybody know?
Darkness.
Darkness. Darkness. Yahweh says in Psalm, he uses hoshech, to use a Hebrew word, as his sukkah.
And the same word is used in Egypt when he sent the darkness that was so dark they couldn't even move.
Right.
The same word.
Right. So Yahweh uses darkness as a sukkah. When he was, when he was in Mount Sinai, and he was on that mountain in Saudi Arabia called Jabal al-Lawz now. You can see the burnt mountain till this day. That Saudi Arabia won't let you go there. And you'll see the pillars there when they were there doing all their thing. Yahweh had a sukkah there. But on Yahweh's, you need to have her up here to draw this stuff, but I don't know. I'm trying to draw the Mishkan. But I'm going to fake it, you know, until I make it. Okay. Okay. This here would be the rectangle of Yahweh. And on Yahweh's Mishkan, there wasn't a fabric literally going across there. You know, like, see we have this? It was something that started from down on the ground, went up, went over, and came down. You have the curtains here, and you have the linen around the Mishkan. Do you know what part was the sukkah?
The leather part?
The leather part's part of the sukkah. And there's 4 layers here, right? There's Yahweh's sukkah right here. The Mishkan. This part that arches over is the actual sukkah, right? So it's a 2-stage instrument. So you got these 4 walls of fabric, and then you have this fabric, and you got the this animal skin from the ocean that everybody beat each other up over, and it's leather, and it's dark, and it's ugly looking. And you have the wool, you get the linen, and so forth. But this is the sukkah portion. Okay, it's also called an ohel. It's also called a hekel. But this is what Yahweh's going on. So remember, Yahweh's language has a great big bandwidth. It's not like a Greek word where it just means one thing. My wife, you know, being a scientist, you know, she has to have an exact language to say this thing is what this thing is. You know, when I argue about you know, proboscis of an insect. Anybody know the proboscis of an insect? Does anybody know? What's a proboscis? Well, I'm not even saying it right, probably.
It's one of the mouth parts that it's like a butterfly has proboscis. It's a long tubular mouth part that rolls up and folds.
Yeah. So you get
it's a sucking mouth part.
Right. So you got different mouth parts. And if you call it something else, you would get it wrong on the test. It would have to be proboscis, this kind of thing that sticks out looking like I don't know what.
Mandibles. There's all different kinds.
All right. But in Yahweh's language, when I'm going through the Hebrew University Hebrew course now with the ancient Hebrew, has to be part of it because where the language is coming from, is that definition of a word in Hebrew doesn't have a definition at all until it's set into a context. So when we say this word is service, of and by itself, it doesn't mean anything. If the word's sitting by itself, it doesn't mean anything. So when we say that sukkah means this structure here, you're wrong. You know why? Because a sukkah could be darkness. A sukkah could be a collection of stones and rocks and thorn bushes around you. A sukkah could be a tent. And people fight over these definitions. You're always like, are you using it in context? Or you just using that same word for everything? Remember, Yahweh's spirit is one, right? Does everybody agree with that? But when that spirit is broken up in 7 different sections, you got 1, the Hakmah, wisdom. You have 2, Binah, understanding. You have 3, Etzah, counsel. You have 4, Ruach. You have 5, Gurvora, power. You have 6, Da'at, knowledge. And you have 7, Yerat, fear. All those in one spirit. Then, if you go to Yahweh's fruit, it doesn't say fruit, period. Yahweh's fruit, you got 9 fruit coming out of one spirit. And people have a problem with the oneness of Yahweh. I can't believe that Yeshua is Elohim and there's the Father. You know, Yahweh's like, duh. Take light. Light is not really white, but it's white. And you know how many colors in that white light? Well, you got a rainbow, you get 7 out of one light. That's not even counting sound, the infrared, and the other spectrums and so forth. So Yahweh has it all over the place, this echadness of things. So when we go ahead and fight over things, if it fits Yahweh's pattern, we're going to be well set. But it's something off the planet to Never Land, you may see something, a divergence for what Yahweh's trying to present. So we in Yahweh now have a beautiful tradition now of like Nehemiah coming back. We found in the Torah to keep the feast of Sukkot, and we keep it. And then we have we learned earlier this week that where Yahweh's name is where you keep tabernacles or the feast days. And people are extra hung up that since I can't go to Jerusalem where Yahweh's name is, and we'll tell you what the name is, that I'm not going to keep the feast. Okay. And then we learn, what does the word name mean?